Hello. How we doing? Ooh. Okay. I didn't know how this was working, but we're live. We're ready to rumble. Let's see what's up in here. This is my first time being live ever. That's why I gotta look at this. Do we have audio? Are we feeling good? We do. Let's do this thing. Okay. Hello. Happy Halloween. Here in Minnesota, it is snowing. First snow of the year. Boo. I wasn't feeling it today, but that's okay. It's Halloween. It's great. Today we are doing our first live on wedding photography, State of the Union. I'm going to break down how I'm feeling, how Cameron and I's business has been going, how other sentiments that we're hearing in Facebook groups, in our local community, things like that. So we're going to really get into the nitty gritty. But in the meantime, if we haven't met before, I'm Tia. I'm one half of Cameron and Tia here on YouTube and everywhere. My husband Cameron and I are high school sweethearts. We met when we were in second grade. We own our photography business together, as well as we do partnerships. We have a team of 6 photographers. We love to just dabble in all of the things, plus, be married together. So today, we're going to get deep dive into the State of the Union. So let's get just a little context to this conversation. I've got some notes that I want to break down here, but first, let's talk about everything leading into this year, 2024, and how people are feeling in 2025, booking for 2025, booking for 2026. I see a lot of fear. I see a lot of slow businesses, and so I want to get into that. So COVID happens, right? Everything shuts down. Weddings are not happening. I would say that Cameron and I were in an interesting place in our business where we started photographing weddings in 2017. So 2020 was going to be our 4th season. So, we're settled in a bit. We're tweaking things, but we've got a pretty fine-tuned business. It's going great. And then COVID happens, and then people start to feel post-COVID. They start to feel rescheduled. So 2021, 2022, even 2023, I've heard that people had some crazy bookings. So you feel the reschedules, plus you feel people who couldn't get married in 2020. Maybe they got engaged in 2019 or late 2018, or then they start getting engaged in 2020. Then in addition, so you kind of have that influx. You have this addition of couples who meet in 2020, which was less, right? People aren't meeting people as much, or they met in late 2019 and their relationship is escalated. People get serious really fast because they might be quarantined together, or they're really evaluating priorities. I think we have a double pressure during 2020 because it was an election year and because of George Floyd's murder and Black Lives Matter. There were a lot of discussions happening for people in which they were really able to evaluate priorities and figure out hey, I'm in this for the long haul. This is my serious relationship. And so then those people are getting married in 2022 and in 2023. So people were having crazy heydays for booking. I think that's why you see a lot of people who had time during COVID to build a photography business. They were able to learn, they were able to get into online courses. I think online courses were popping off in 2020. And so you see photographers on the other end of the spectrum, they were able to rapidly build businesses because there was a lot of demand for photographers. There were a lot of people wanting to get married, and photographers had the time to build their business. So kind of an intersection there of people were able to rapidly increase pricing because demand was there. And so, they could be the supply, which meant that businesses were popping off really fast. I think we've seen a lot of people who have just escalated so quickly, this very quick jump in which they were start my business to boom, I'm shooting a wedding at $4,000, maybe $5,000 price point, which is crazy. Let me get a sip. Crazy, but great, right? Cheers. If you are not in the Midwest, this is Caribou. It is delicious. It's our local coffee chain. Started in Minnesota. This is my first hot coffee of the season because snow. So there's that interesting cross section of that, right? For us, We had leveled out, again, business kind of fine-tuned. When we went into 2020, some of our weddings that were booked at a $3,200 price point. If you know us, we're always going to be transparent. I will answer whatever questions you have. If you guys want to pop anything in the chat, feel free, because I will literally answer anything. I got to look over there. Okay. For future live streaming, this is not the setup where you're getting a full side profile of me. But we will answer anything. And so some of our weddings were booked at that price point. A lot were booked at $4,200. Now our starting price point for working with us, not the team, is $6,200. So in there, because the way that people like us who had been a little bit into their business when COVID hit, and then when there was this huge influx of people wanting to get married post-COVID, people raised prices pretty significantly, right? That's almost a 2 times jump in between there, which would be natural, I think. It's hard to say, if we would have started our business in 2010 and then instead had this 8-year period to 2018, would we have jumped the same? Probably, right? But it's hard to know because there was this influx of demand. So it's tough to also evaluate now people's fears going into booking 2025, 2026, because for our data, we're not evaluating apples to apples. We're evaluating apples to oranges with a difference in a huge price jump. Going from, 32 or 42 to 62 in a Midwest market. Now, this is important if you have not met us before. We are in Minneapolis, which is, pure Midwest. I'd say it's a pretty low wedding market in the entire US. I think you see a lot of different peaks, on the coast. You see a lot of, that's the highest price points. You see some down south with a lot of luxury weddings where people really prioritize weddings and money and family money going into weddings. And even in Chicago, Midwest market, again, another big city, obviously a bigger city than Minneapolis, the wedding market is way more expensive than the Minneapolis wedding market. So take all this pricing with a grain of salt, as always, that it's specific to our situation and specific, especially to our geographic region. But that said, it's really tough to compare because our variables are not the same. Just how is life looking? It's also that we raised pricing, right? So that's something interesting. So I just wanted all of this context going into this conversation. So the biggest thing is that people are feeling kind of nervous about some slow bookings, especially I would say people who I'm conversing with are in a similar place to us in our business of hey, bookings are a little bit slower, and maybe that's just that most weddings aren't happening as much. So I want to talk a little bit today about how can we capitalize on that, because it's an election year. People are feeling probably some election anxiety, feeling a little nervous. Maybe planning a wedding or getting deep into a relationship even is not at the forefront. People have also said a little bit about economy and that people are kind of hoarding money more, not wanting to have as much frivolous spending. But then I think a lot of this COVID conversation and post-COVID life has a lot to do with it too. So let's talk about ways that we can capitalize on every booking that comes to us. So number one, a lot of people that are booking weddings now are Gen Z. And I think a lot of people around our age. So I'm about to turn 33, 32 right now. Cam is 32. We have a lot of photographer friends in our community that are, low 30s and higher 20s, right? So they've been in this industry for, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. A lot of people are resistant to acknowledging that Gen Z is the one who's booking now. Is that always? No. We have clients that are older than us, but I would say probably now, let me think on this for a hot second. I would say 90% of our clients are younger than us. Maybe 95. And that's across our entire brand. So that's not just the weddings that Cameron and I shoot, which is about 25, 26, 28, 7, but also our team's weddings, which is another 25 weddings this year. And then going into next year, they have another 24 booked, right, at this time. So that stat, I should have figured it out exactly, but when I'm trying to think about age-wise, so most are younger. That doesn't mean they're Gen Z, right? But it does mean that Gen Z is getting out of college, is already into their career, and they are booking and planning weddings. And I think a lot of us feel resistant to acknowledge that and feel resistant to change. The biggest thing, and I just had a conversation with my mastermind that I'm in. I'm just in a peer-led mastermind here in Minneapolis, and My dear friend Micah, you should look her up. She literally does it all. Micah Bain was talking about like, hey, okay, Gen Z is booking me. My default has always been, let's get them on a call. Let's get everyone, not Gen Z, let's get everyone on a call ASAP and let's talk through if I'm going to be a good fit for them and let's get them booked as soon as possible, right? We know that. Urgency works. That's something that's been in our industry for the longest time. And then she said, but what Gen Z person is getting on a call? Gen Z hates talking on the phone. They're not talking on the phone. Maybe they're FaceTiming, right? Probably not FaceTiming like a rando for a business. They're texting. They're DMing. And something that I have felt for the longest time is, I'm a boundaries queen. I love systems. I love workflows. Both Cam and I are very system oriented. We love to set policies. We love to have like principles of like, this is how our business operates and this is why, with deep intention. And I think a lot of people try to do that in their business. And so what that leads to is I don't take DM inquiries. Not me personally, people. If someone DMs, I'm telling them to go to my contact form immediately, or I'm not even responding. I'm putting in my bio, no DMs, only on my website. And I'm like, why? Especially in this state of the union, why? And then triple whammy, Gen Z who wants to DM you, why would you not converse with them? Why would you not take their money, book them? Like, those type of things that you start saying, no, this is my system and I have boundaries, so I'm not going to like look in my message requests on Instagram. Okay, somebody else will. And if we don't have that many inquiries coming through, we need to capitalize on these. So, one caveat I want to go into here quickly is based on what I'm seeing in Facebook groups and communities in my local community, what people are talking about, our booking is not going as slowly as others are feeling. I would say earlier this year, it did feel a little like, ooh. And then as this, like I would say in January, February, where we should have like cleaned up some early bookings for 2025, I was like, ooh, we are behind. Now we're starting to catch up to a normal booking pace. Excuse me. And so I think that really works out that way. But it's important to note, when I'm hearing state of the unions in Facebook groups, there's no way to really know, like, what is this compared to your normal booking? Do you have less inquiries or do you just have less conversions? Okay. But now jumping back, what if every inquiry that reached out, you just texted them? You texted them the pricing guide. You texted them quick answers to their questions. Would that be more likely to convert for a Gen Z client? I would say yes, based on data, based on buying preferences, based on just like technology usage preferences. So I think that's really interesting. I mean, it goes back to the TikTok conversation of years ago where so many photographers were resistant to get on TikTok. Okay, I get it. It's hard. It's a lot of work. You have to be front facing. You have to be direct to camera. But also if your audience is there, future wedding clients. We shot our first true TikTok client this past October, so we're in Minneapolis. She is based in Madison. And I feel like we've had clients where they know of us. And so then they get fed our TikTok content. And that's just like reaffirming to them of like, oh yeah, these are the people that I want. Right. But this was like, she found us on TikTok and Gen Z. And it was so fun. She knew so much about us. And, we don't put a ton of time and effort into our TikTok strategy anymore. But now as I'm talking about this, I'm like, dang, maybe we should be like, geez Louise. So yeah, I think just meet Gen Z where they're at. And this can happen with the inquiry stage. This can happen with what platform you're on. This can happen with how you converse with them. Don't be resistant to like, this is my system and I have to do it this way just because that might age you out, right? That might age you out of this process where continually people around the same age, I mean, yes, it's older now than 20 years from now, but this pocket of people are getting married and different generations are going to go through that, what, I don't know, maybe 22 to 35 on average. Yes, getting older again from 20 years ago, probably. But Gen Z, is where it's at. And Gen Z is going to probably stay in that pocket, especially if that pocket shifts a little bit older even than now. So the other thing that I want to talk about is like the Amazonification of purchasing. I think that I see so many posts about like delivery times, sneak peeks. And again, people who are like, this is my system. I have to follow this system. And I don't want to do sneak peeks because they slow me down. I get it. incredibly valid. But I think a generation that has been brought up on Amazon and can press a button and then they can have something at their door 2 days from then or the next day or the same day, is going to have a tough time waiting to see photos and is going to gradually become more and more resistant against that. I think people who are like, I don't do sneak peeks, and you have to keep convincing the clients of that. At some point you have to pause and be like, why? Wouldn't it be more worth it to do them? If people keep asking, there clearly is this world where people desire this. And so then I think related to that is TikTok culture, and people can now, in bad and good ways, see so much more. Like, I just even think about, 32, about to be 33, when I was a child, my options for hobbies were influenced by the people around me, right? So my parents, my neighbors, my friends, of here I could do this or I could do this. Here I could dance or I could do this craft. I did not see TikTok. My parents did not see TikTok, where literally every hobby in the world you have knowledge of at your fingertips, like literally just knowledge of, I see all these things now. I'm clearly on hobby TikTok, but little bead, like where you're sewing beads and you put them in like little flowers on your jean jacket or whatever, knitting, crocheting, all of these things that like I was not even exposed to as a potential option. So now put this into Gen Z, who has had this at their fingertips, the potential of the world at their fingertips. Again, I understand there's cons, and I understand that this becomes like a wedding industry that's full of a first look with your brother, a first look with your dad, a first look with your stepdad, a first look with your uncle, a first look with your aunt, like hard, and not necessarily something I'm pushing for, but I think it's important to have context of like, these people who are buying now have seen the world, they've seen the potential, and so they've seen photographers that have same day sneak peeks, have same day slideshows, and if you can't meet that at some reality, you are a worse off service than the other service, right? And everything's a give and take. But I think that's just important to like not be just resistant because you're resistant. Okay, let me take a sip. Okay, fast inquiry responses is related. When I see people who photographers that post on Instagram stories like, oh, all inquiries are now cleared out. If you haven't heard back from me, let me know. It's implied that you waited a day, 2 days, 3 days to respond to all these because you have a bunch of them sitting there. I never have an inquiry sitting anywhere. Why? Amazonification. Even people in my generation know that they want things at their fingertips. If there's not a booking calendar that they can't book on instantly, I better be responding instantly, like a wedding inquiry, right? My dear friend Micah was talking about, hey, for my wedding inquiries, I might just take it to a straight booking guide. They click, it's automated, booking guide goes straight to them. If they want to book there, they can book there. They can ask questions, of course, but I don't need to hop on these calls. I don't even need to go back and forth in text like I was implying. I think that we just have to be speedy beyond speedy, and there's really no excuse for it. Templates, come on, y'all. You can have templates that can respond so fast, if not automated, if not instantly, right? Instantly automated. Okay, texting DMs, yes, we talked about that. Fun add-ons. The other thing about the world is their oyster. They've seen everything possible. Now these people who are purchasing have seen Super 8 films. They've seen Polaroids on wedding days. They've seen just like all these different options. Again, I'm not saying that you should add all of these things. I'm saying that when you make your business decisions, you make decisions about the cost of doing business, adding film, a huge cost of doing business, that you should really evaluate like what is a good fit for me and what is not, and what are these people going to potentially want. And it doesn't have to be, I am this artsy photographer and so I only do this. I think photographers often get stuck in that framing of like, I'm the creative. But this is, at some point, for me, for sure, is a business. And a business is built on demand. It's built on what the people want. What are they demanding from you? And then you provide the supply. You can't just put the supply out and hope that they come. And I think that's where some of our photographer creatives that hold that so dear to them, and I'm a creative, I make the choices, yeah, you'll have people for that. But in a place where the demand is really low right now, seemingly, with this state of the union, it means that, you gotta fluctuate with that. You gotta evaluate your supply. So, okay. the final thing is I think people are planning more last minute. It sounds like across the industry that people are not wanting to be engaged for years upon years. They're wanting to book things now and find their venue for the next year. And because supply in our area is, and I can't speak to this in other areas, is very high for venues. So many venues have popped up post-COVID, which is crazy. It means that people can book things more last minute. So that kind of works in that way. Oh, this is just a supply and demand talk. I should have evaluated some basic economics before I got on this. But yeah, so those are my thoughts about where can we meet Gen Z where they're at? Where can we meet the buyer where they're at, even if that's not quite Gen Z yet? And I think it's some fun things to take into some potential off seasons that people are heading into. In Minnesota, that's where we're at, heading into off season, and decide some choices that you might want to make for your business. So thank you for joining my first live stream. This was super fun. I cannot wait to do more of these. And along this theme, State of the Union, if you are in the US and you are getting ready to vote, please make sure that you get out, get your voice heard. We are quite excited for the potential of this election. Cameron and I are voting for Kamala Harris. We are voting to bulk up the opportunity for the middle class. We are voting to protect women's rights. We are voting to protect the LGBTQIA plus community. And so everyone, though, make sure that you get out and you vote and make a plan to vote, especially if you're watching this live by next Tuesday. If you're in Minnesota, you can be voting in person right now. And yes, please leave any comments down below. Thank you so much for watching.